Everyone wants to learn about what to eat. Oh, okay, we're bringing in just one more option of seating.
Just in case.
Just in case. Some cute little people right there. All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming out on Thursday evening. Learn about nutrition, how to optimize your diet, what the heck to eat, right? That's what we're going to be talking about this evening. So I'm Sophie Alexander. I'm lead practitioner here at the Nutritional Wellness Center. I think most of you know me, but I'm a clinical nutritionist. Been working here for the past 6 years, and really excited and passionate about what I do and helping transform people's lives through nutrition response testing and whole food nutrition. And to give you a little bit more of my background so that you know why I do this work, I would say in retrospect now that I know that like my health story and my health journey started at a young age. You know, I dealt with food cravings. I went through puberty too young. I had a lot of digestive issues starting in high school that got really severe in college when I decided to become vegetarian and then vegan for a while for certain principles. So I definitely have that experience of working through some different types of diets, you know, figuring out for sure what works for me. That didn't. My digestive system just went crazy while I was in college, you know, bloating so bad that I'd be lying down after meals to allow the pain and like the gas to move through. And then it all came to a head after college when I got a Lyme bite. Didn't really know that I'd gotten it in the moment. 6 months went by and I started developing some bad arthritic symptoms and swelling in my wrists and my knees. And so that's really what began my journey, because conventional medicine did not have many answers for me. It didn't really help with symptom recovery, even though they told me that the Lyme was gone. And so I started studying herbal medicine. And then I moved to Ithaca actually to study with Seven Song, who does an herbal medicine program here. And I'd be driving by Green Street all the time and I'd see that radish and I wondered what this place was all about. And at the same time, I had been learning more about the principles I'm going to be talking to you about today. I'd been learning about the Weston A Foundation and traditional diets, and I'd been studying that on my own. And then when I found that that was what Tara Lambert, who founded the Nutritional Wellness Center, that's what she was teaching people, really was like, I need to go there. I need to know what this is all about. And the pairing of the nutrition response testing and the really having someone to hold me accountable and apply those traditional principles for changing up my diet, I started to get better. And then I knew I had to go back to school and do this work. So that's why I'm here this evening, excited to share this information with you, because it's the nutrition world, it's a challenging profession to be a part of. It's like ever shifting, it's ever changing. It's incredibly controversial for something that shouldn't be that controversial. It's like what we put in our mouths, what we eat. But I feel like every other day there's a study saying coconut oil is good or saying it's bad. There's just so much confusion in the general population about how we should be taking care of ourselves. And you know, it also feels like every other day that someone's writing a book about what's like the perfect way to eat and what was right for them, and thus how everybody should eat. And so I'll tell you right off, you're not going to come to this talk tonight and learn the perfect way to eat, because there isn't a perfect way for everyone. Hands down, I truly believe that, like, while there are some broad principles that I'm going to be talking about, and there are things that are similar for everybody, we are also all very much individuals. We all have our own makeup of what our specific nutritional deficiencies are, or our specific body makeup, how our own organs are doing. And we are all a product of how our parents ate and how the parents before them ate, and so on. And thus it means that we all have, it's a really simple concept, but we all have specific needs of how we need to be taking care of our bodies. And so that's why I strongly believe that, like, someone will write a book about this one thing that worked so well for them because it was right for them, but it doesn't mean that then it's going to work for the next person. So there's a lot of hot button like kind of names floating around right now. I feel like people are like the Keto Diet is really big right now. You know, a lot more and more people are hearing about paleo. I just wanted to give some brief descriptions of what those mean, so folks you can kind of understand what's being talked about. and I want you to have better understanding of like general within these worlds of like what people are talking about and what are hot topics. Like they do have a lot of really common things in common, and it's just about the differing principles in them. But I also want you to understand that like you can follow like one of those diets and you can still not eat a nutritionally dense good diet. And I'll get more into what I mean by that in a little bit. But just so I'm not jumping ahead, so keto is a kind of a reworking of Atkins. So what it is a diet that's really low in carbohydrates. So most folks who are following a keto diet eat very little grains, also eat very few or lower starch vegetables too. So it's going to be a diet that's low in overall what's called net carbohydrates, and then higher in fats and moderate protein.
Did you say low grains or no grains?
Either no to low, but because you're getting the carbohydrate level so low in the diet, a lot of people it's no grains at all. Yeah, and so it's interesting. Keto is short for ketogenesis. It's about getting the body moving into burning fat for fuel versus burning glucose for fuel. And it was first developed or really researched and studied for helping epileptic kids with seizures. And it worked amazingly well. And it's really awesome to see how you can change the body's biochemistry and help and create that change. And then they started seeing other health benefits from it. And I will definitely tell you, as a broad principle, I am very much in favor of people having less sugar and less carbohydrates in their diet. Like anyone here who works with me will know that. And clinically, I have seen great success with particularly people who are diabetic, pre-diabetic, in pushing themselves into ketosis, like getting the carb counting so low, that they're having mostly protein and fat, and then they're getting some carbohydrates from vegetables, but it's still low. But then you have to be really careful about getting enough fiber, and really there could be a whole talk about keto, and so I don't want to derail too much, but I wanted people to understand what I'm talking about. And then the paleo diet is no grains, no legumes, no refined sweeteners. It's getting back to that principle of saying, well, how our ancestors may have eaten. But I do feel like our ever search for sweets as humans is meant that so then the paleo diet says, well, no refined sweeteners, but honey's okay, maple syrup's okay, these are traditional sweeteners, and you can still just have way too much sugar and too much sweets and too much fruit and things like that. So again, it comes down to the individual body, but wanting you to understand these broad principles. So it's going to bring us to more of an education about who was Weston A. Price, what was the research that he did back in the 30s, and what were the broad principles that he developed about what is a healthy diet. Because I do see people, as I was just saying, misapply those paleo concepts of it and still just do lots of fruit and lots of sweets. And I see people struggle with keto too, where they're just eating tons and tons of dairy because it's so low carb, and then it's poor quality dairy and they're constipated, and I also see it just not be right for certain women in their hormone balance at certain stages of their life too. So Weston A. Price was a dentist. He lived in the 30s. He did some really fascinating research where basically he and his wife traveled around the world, and they studied traditional diets, and they looked at their teeth. And he was really interested in cultures where, and the traditional cultures that were on the verge of, on the verge of civilization. So basically he was studying the intersection of how these traditional cultures met with the changes that were happening, like the introductions of refined flours and the introductions of refined sweeteners. And so what was cool about it is it was traditional diets from all over the world, and so they didn't all look exactly the same, in terms of the makeup of the diet, but he discovered some core unifying principles among them. And then he just has some amazing documentation of how people changed, particularly how their teeth changed with the introduction of refined sweeteners and refined grains. And it would be really quickly, it would be within a generation. So he studied, the families, particularly the mothers, would start eating refined grains and refined sugars, and then their children would start to be born with dental changes. Like he saw that the arches in their mouths got smaller. There wasn't room for their teeth to be growing in properly, and he wrote a kind of dry book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, but the concepts and the pictures in it are just so cool because he documented every piece of it. And the more generations that folks had these, what he called the foods of civilization in their diet, the more degeneration he saw. But then the positive of it and the message of hope that I take from it is that as people then move back to their traditional diets and pull out the refined sugar and pull out the refined grains, then within a couple generations, even very quickly, like he had documented within one family, these were the kids that were born eating the white flour, and then here's the next child born where the mother went back to a traditional diet, and the dental arches were back, there was better formation, and just overall better formation in the bone structure, which was just talking about really showing the body getting the full spectrum of nutrition that is needed to form properly. And so then, there are people who the Weston A. Price Foundation is committed to keeping his work going and continue to educate people about his work. And so they have a lot of wonderful resources, and we listed some of them for you on that snacks, lunches, substitution ideas. So they have a website called the westonaprice.org where you can learn a ton of information. You can become a member and support them. And they have a lot of resources to help folks navigate different food options. So you can buy their shopping guide where they literally go through and rate foods from best, good, worst option, and get you a sense of if you're trying to buy a cracker, what kind of cracker would be your best option, basically. They put it all into an app as well, and it's called Find Real Food. And then they have some other downloadable PDFs, like a guide called Healthy for Life booklet that goes into more detail about these principles that I'm going to briefly talk about right now, because there's a lot to say about each aspect of it. Each of them could be their own talk. And Cindy's about to start our cooking series for the fall, and she'll be kind of approaching each one of these as a topic, because the first one is all about fermenting dairy, right?
Nope, we're going to do the lacto-fermenting.
Oh, the first part is going to be about lacto-fermenting foods, and so she's doing a whole class about the introduction of fermented foods. So the biggest, so I'm referring to this sheet that's in your packet, is really highlighting the data of nourishing traditional diets, traditional diets versus modern diets, and I say these underlying principles of how to eat well, how to nourish the body, how to begin to rebuild it cell by cell. And you have that in there? No, you do.
Mine was further back than your place.
Should be about, it's
There,
behind
the
this
different
one.
hat.
Okay. Yeah, so a big piece that I work to educate people about is just how minerally deficient our soil has become. So traditional diets, they didn't, have the advent of big farming, and the soil was that much more fertile, right? And thus the food is more rich in vitamins and minerals. And so that's a huge starting point of a difference between traditional diets and modern diets. So one way that we can apply that in terms of what do we eat, is buying organic fruits and vegetables because they are more rich in minerals, and particularly buying local from a farmer that you know is like working on building soil, right? And the more you can have a relationship with someone who's locally growing your food, then you're going to know that your food is actually grown in fertile soil and is going to actually have more to it nutritionally. All the diets that Dr. Price studied ate way more of the whole animal than we do now. So we eat a lot of muscle meat, which has a certain amino acid profile, but it's an incomplete profile. So they ate more organs meats, which are higher in B vitamins, and they ate a lot more broths and ligaments and folks that were all much higher in collagen. And that is our building blocks for our bodies to remake ourselves. So one way we can apply that is, you can buy meat with its bone in, right? And then you can save that bone and you could cook it again, or you can start incorporating more broths and more meat stocks and bone broths particularly. We have a hard time here at Nutrition Wellness Center keeping collagen peptides on the shelves just because it's just such a wonderful way for, I think, in our modern world to be getting that collagen in, because not everyone's wanting to keep broth cooking for 36 hours. Even though we're so blessed to have a place like the Piggery here in Ithaca, who has organ meats and has these different cuts and makes the bone broth for us. But the collagen peptides comes from the hides of grass-fed cows. It's literally gelatin that has been further processed into collagen, which is a tasteless, odorless powder. I have so many clients who love mixing it in their coffee, particularly because it comes in a creamer. It's just a straight coconut milk creamer. I use this in my smoothies. I hide it in my kids' food. I really mix it in wherever we go, and we just see such great results from people who are adding it in regularly. I mean, if folks are adding in broths or they're adding this in, I feel like they start to age in reverse. It's like their skin gets younger, their hair grows better, their nails are stronger, things like that. And so that was that's a big difference. And so hence you've got, just to tie it back, you have the paleo diet. Everyone's eating lots of protein, they're eating lots of muscle meat. You can be on the paleo diet and you can totally incorporate collagen. It's just not necessarily, it's just about that education and that understanding for someone to actually know to do that. Traditional diets were big on animal fats, whereas modern diets, we just do lots and lots of refined vegetable oils. And, talking about fats is a whole huge topic on its own, but I don't want you to be afraid of animal fats. I don't want you to be afraid of coconut oil. I do want you to be afraid of canola and stay far away from it. And in traditional diets, just feel free to head in. Yeah.
I don't know why.
You don't know why? Yeah, understood. And that's what I was meaning by that. So it's a huge topic. I can touch on it really briefly right now, but basically the refined vegetable oils are they're processed with chemicals for the extraction process, and then in the temperatures that they're heated to, they are polyunsaturated fats, so they're not stable. Whereas animal fats or saturated fats, they are stable. They can be heated to high temperatures, and thus it causes a lot of oxidative stress in our bodies, and it causes a lot of cellular damage to be using those oils that are basically sitting on the shelf rancid. And it's a big re-education piece that I do with people about not learning to unvilify fat, particularly unvilify saturated fat, and understand that that in terms of all the concern about heart health and about cholesterol, that it's really those refined oils that are the biggest culprit, and that the advent of the introduction of those oils kind of around the time Weston A. Price was starting to do his research, and then it really picked up in the 50s, is when we saw the skyrocketing of these types of diseases. And even though there was so much of a education campaign to like pull the fat out, people have not been getting any healthier. Mm-hmm. If anything, we've been getting more and more unhealthy. And so that's just a slight segment on it. I should do a whole class on fats. Yeah. And the Weston A. Price Foundation has incredible research about it, you know, and every time there's a study that comes out vilifying coconut oil, they like have a response, and they have the redirection of the research. So I really encourage you to read their website, or if you join them and become a member, they have an awesome journal where they're about 4 times a year, I think they publish lots of great articles and research. It's fun to keep up with. A big thing about traditional diets too is animals on pasture. So the way animals are raised and how they're fed as they're being raised completely changes the quality of the meat, and how again, it ties back to the fats, but basically whether they're higher in omega-6s, which are kind of more pro-inflammatory, or they're higher in omega-3s. And so even separate from the fact that about the antibiotic count and things like that in animals raised in confinement, just because of how many they're trying to raise in close space, and then trying to keep them alive, right? But it affects our health. And of course, it's a huge issue. It's just sort of if you have any care about welfare of farm animals, right? Yep, eating animals locally raised, ideally all pasture fed, is a good goal to be working towards. And so that's another issue. I mean, yeah, it's an issue I have with just the ongoing education that needs to happen with when people are trying to change their diet and are like, oh yes, I need to reduce my grains, or I need to reduce my sugar. But if you're eating too much meat that's poor quality meat, gosh, that's not really going to, your body's going to say, yay, sigh of relief, I'm not getting all these refined grains. But long term, it's not going to help reduce the overall state of inflammation in the body, and it's not going to help reduce the toxic load, which I see in my work is very much a underlying piece of why we're all so sick and why folks are struggling with their health. Let's see if I want to. And then another biggie that I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier when I was saying that like a lot of people can do a keto diet where they're really trying to increase their fats, and then they're doing lots and lots of dairy. I see a lot of folks with digestive issues with dairy, and I also see that it's mostly due to the quality of the dairy too. And so Dr. Price's research was about how traditional diets, first how they raised the animals that gave them the dairy, which would affect the quality of that, but it was also about how all of that dairy was fermented in certain ways and given ways to increase its digestibility, and that it was not pasteurized, so it was not heated to high temperatures, which really changes like the enzyme content of that dairy and changes its digestibility. So unfortunately, we live in a state where it's not legal to get raw milk in the store. You can go, there are places, and we can help you find them, where you can go to the farm and get raw dairy. And you can buy raw cheese, raw hard cheeses, because they've been aged for 60 days. But I find that that's a big thing that many clients have to work on and have to reduce the amount that they consume, and really work on repairing the digestive tract. And that is a big thing that he saw in all the different cultures, that their dairy was raw and it was fermented. So that would be like your kefir or your yogurt. And coming up in November, I think, Cindy's going to be doing a whole talk about how to ferment your dairy, so which is going to be awesome, because I know it's going to be daunting. It's a daunting topic. And he also found that in the cultures that did have grains, they really and ate grains were usually a regular part of the diet, but they were treated very carefully to make them more digestible. So the grains also went through a fermentation process and a soaking process, so that the body could utilize and absorb the nutrients from it. And so we've gone to so the other extreme. You know, our grains are highly processed. They are very much like, you know, everyone's seen the food pyramid. They're all along the bottom of the food pyramid. So the education is so much that like there should be a staple of the diet. So we're eating way too many of them, and then in forms that are hard to digest, actually damaging to the digestive tract. So this practice is not paleo per se in any, but we have so many clients who need to reduce their grains, and many who never get them back because of the damage that's happened in their digestive tract, and then some who do, you know, but then when they do introduce them back in, it's in these fermented forms that really is the best. I have some people who, you know, or just people who just have to greatly reduce the amount that they're consuming. And then it's their choice whether they save it for their one slice of pizza a week or if they choose to, you know, ration their grains and have it be soaked oatmeal, you know. Let people have that choice of how they use their grains. But all over the mark, we have people eat less. Any questions so far? I know it's great you're jumping in, but I just wanted to ask if anybody else has anything else they want to. Yeah, I don't want to focus too much or go on and on about the theory. I feel like you guys can look through and look at this handout and really get more of the sense of like what are these foundations and what to work in. And it's just about the little steps, you know. If you can have less grains overall, if you can work in bone broths, if you can work in more collagen, if you can have more fermentation, whether that's fermented dairy or it's fermented vegetables. And what I mean by fermented vegetables is like your sauerkraut or your kimchi or fermented pickles. It's any kind of a vegetable that's been put in a saltwater brine and allowed to ferment, and then it grows certain probiotics, which all aid the digestive processes. And Dr. Price found that through all these different traditional cultures, they all had some form of a fermented vegetable or fermented foods as part of what they ate and as a way to support digestion. And so we have so many dead foods, and then not eating fermented foods to support that digestive processes. So that's why we do so much work about rebuilding enzymes and having people incorporate more of these foods so that their digestive systems can repair and start to undo the damage that's been done. And I think that's why it can be so frustrating for folks as they're applying a lot of these principles in the sense of, well, I know I need to be eating less sugar and I know I need to be eating less grains, and they're trying to work towards it, but their digestive system is so damaged that it feels like it's not working, right? And then it's discouraging, and then they give up, right? And so I find that the more I educate people about how far off our food system and our food supply has become in general, then they kind of realize, okay, it's not that I'm doing the wrong thing, it's just the work that's needed to repair internally to have it all click. And I feel like why a lot of people are hunting for the next thing that works is because they really want to lose weight and they really want to feel better, and not recognizing, gosh, how deep it goes to get to the root cause of why the body is putting on weight and not losing weight. And so, it's a quick answer, but it's a quick reason, but it's a long process of an answer. And but really rewarding to watch people actually work through it and get to the bottom of it. And so to make it all less theory as well and get into more of some direct application, we did throw in some fun food ideas for you about like actually what to eat, what to take for a lunch, what to snack on as fats, what to incorporate, like if you're trying to have less grains but still want to pack a lunch, and incorporate some of those. So there's a lot of fun things here. We incorporated some bread substitutes because I feel like that's a big question that people are always asking me, or like, what are better bread options, or what can I eat for a sandwich, or what do you pack your daughter for lunch? My 6-year-old loves those deli meat roll-ups. So she does like an organic turkey from the piggery or from Wegmans, and then she gets her raw goat cheddar from Green Star that she loves, and she rolls those up, and she'll take that for lunch, even though she was telling me I don't make her enough sandwiches. All the other kids have sandwiches. So I'm gonna have to up my game. Oh, but so I really hope you find these helpful. What we did is when we were referring to, particularly in the snacks section, when we were referring to specific things, then we incorporated the recipe here for you too. So there's a lot of fun things to apply. The collagen cookie dough bites, incorporate this collagen, and it's a great way to have a high-powered snack, and you don't even realize it's containing all these different amino acids to help you build your skin and your hair, repair your digestive tract. The coconut butter energy bars is a big favorite of mine, and it's a really nice open-ended recipe. And then you're getting the good fat I talk about from the coconut. It's another way to work in the collagen if you like. And I love it because you can really customize to the person. Are you a big nuts person? Do you like the crunch of it? Do you want something that's more smooth? It's really hard to find a good bar, like a pre-made bar. It's hard to find ones that are simple ingredients, that don't contain a lot of binders, that don't contain a lot of artificial sweeteners. And so, I love just encouraging people to make their own. But I am excited to see that this movement is, the movement and the search for healthier food is catching on. And so more and more things are showing up. Each time I go to Wegmans, I have to spend all this time in the nature section because they're carrying more things, and stuff that used to only be available on the internet is now on the shelves. So I was excited to see that Bulletproof, it makes an energy bar that contains collagen, sweetened with stevia. It's good protein, low sugar, and I can get them at Wegmans, and they're tasty. So it's catching on. Yeah, so we have a lot of good fun ways to get in collagen and get in gelatin. The homemade gummies, actually that's a staple in Gemma's lunch too. I know we're not necessarily talking about kids' lunches, but I'm just getting inspired. She takes those almost every day. But I want to take a moment too, just for those of you who aren't clients, or even if you are, I feel like it's always helpful to be reminded why you're here for your own custom nutrition program, and what it's targeting and what it's working towards. Because it ties back to that idea I was talking to about the beginning, that it's really not lip service when I start saying that it's about the individual body and it's about the individual makeup, and that really we are working on things that, as Dr. Price's work showed, that's coming from the previous generation even, and so we're working. My makeup comes from the combination of what my parents ate and how they were raised. And, I've worked really hard through my 2 pregnancies to fortify my children and change up the health of my digestive tract, but they are still a product of me. So they, even with me applying all the work that I know and what I've done, they also have nutritional, they have dietary sensitivities and they have food restrictions. But the research shows that if they keep applying that information, then their children will be healthier. And I do believe that, that is the message of hope, that if we keep sharing this information, if more and more people are applying it, and we're applying it to our children as well as ourselves, and that we will stop having a country that's just and a world that's getting sicker and sicker, but we'll start to turn it around. And so, because I feel most people have symptoms, right? Most people have something in their health that's not optimal and that they're working towards. Tonight I don't have a specific topic for my triangle talk. but I just wrote poor health on the top. And you can think about what applies for you, whether it's your digestion or it's your energy or it's your focus, if it's headaches. And then we look at this triangle here. So we've got a triangle with organ dysfunction down in one corner, and we've got nutritional deficiencies in the other. And this is really what I was talking about when I was saying we are our own unique makeup of nutritional deficiencies, and then how that ties to organ dysfunction. And so when you have anything in a triangle, if you think about the concept of a triangle, if you pull one corner of it, it throws off the other two corners. And so I'll tell you that, like, if you have any kind of a symptom where you're struggling with your health, then I'll just tell you right off the bat, you do have nutritional deficiencies, and you do have organs that aren't functioning optimally. And the unfortunate thing is that when you have organ dysfunction, that furthers the nutritional deficiencies, and when you have nutritional deficiencies, that furthers the organ dysfunction, and the same with whatever the symptom is as well. So they're all interconnected, and unfortunately what ends up happening is with most people's health and with most situations is it's a downward spiral, right? Things continue to worsen rather than get better, because the body is not getting what it needs to fully repair and to fully recover. And so what we have to do is we have to put a stop somewhere, and in some situations it's really just halt. One of the biggest things that we can do is just halt the degeneration that's happening, right? And then the next step is, can we rebuild it? And the positive news is, yes, we can, but it is about identifying what's going on with that specific individual, like what organ systems are struggling and what actually is deficient, and beginning the process of building it back up. And I feel like that's very much the underlying message of why one thing will work for one person, and then it won't work for their neighbor, because because of that specific makeup and that specific biochemistry. So what we do is we use a technique that's called nutrition response testing, which is a way of reading the body and reading the nervous system and identifying these specific deficiencies. And so I'm going to have Cindy, our associate practitioner, come up just to give you a brief demo and understanding of that, so you can understand better how it works and what it's about. But so the idea is that you have Cindy standing here, and Cindy's giving off energy, right? And she's healthy. She's working on her health. It's an ongoing journey, isn't it? And so when I ask her to bring up her arm and match my pressure, and I apply pressure to it, she's able to do that. But let's say that we threw her into a lake and she started getting really cold, right? And the body started to deal with hypothermia. And the idea with the hypothermia is, right, that the body needs to keep the core alive, right? So it's going to draw energy from the fingers and from the toe to basically protect your heart, protect your lungs, keep you alive. And the same concept applies with nutrition response testing. So if I'm testing Cindy and I'm asking her to match my pressure, and I'm touching on different organ systems, and I get to an organ system, let's say her thyroid, because it's just here and it's convenient, and I'm putting pressure on it and I'm irritating it and I'm stressing it to a degree, if that thyroid already has something going on with it, or it's not functioning optimally, doesn't have the right minerals that it needs, then the body's going to draw energy from the hand, energetically protect the thyroid, and her arm will go down. And so I basically am using her arm as my indicator for the overall health of the body. And so, and in an initial assessment, and in every follow-up appointment, we do these scans to test and analyze the body, see what's struggling, and then once we identify what areas are struggling, we prioritize where to begin, and basically ask it, what does it need to start repairing itself? And so that brings us into the next step, is we work with primarily whole food supplements. And the idea behind this, is that everything gives off energy, right? Us all sitting in this room, we're all sharing energy. You can put your hand in the window when it's sunny out, not that it is right now, and you can feel the energy coming off from the sun even though it's really far away. And so food that's alive, supplements that are alive, made from whole food, the body can pick up on the energy given off from it, and we can literally ask it by putting the product on the body or in the hand, near, ideally touching, and then we come back to that same reflex of asking Cindy to match my pressure. And if I go back and I touch the thyroid and the arm goes back to locking, it just means that whatever is in that product is the correct nutrition to help take the stress away and help that organ to begin to heal and repair. And thus the body doesn't have that same stress response of being like, oh gosh, got to do everything I can to protect that organ because it's unhappy. But it's not, it's not about my opinion. It's not even about the client's opinion in the sense of, what you read on the internet about what you need, right? The body calls the shots, and it's just very clear. If I offer her something and there's no change in the arm, then we know it's not going to create any change in her, and it's not actually going to help her to heal. And so that's how we begin the first steps of putting together a custom support for the individual. Thank you. It's kind of like the idea that, if we were all in this room to get custom suits, right? But they all looked the same. They all were black button-down suits, but the inseams would be unique. So like while everyone who's a client here takes supplements, not everyone takes the same thing. And while everyone here is a work in progress, and we're all working to improve our diets and optimize things for ourselves, no one eats the exact same thing. And it's ever changing. It's changing as your needs change, as your body changes, as you're in different parts of your life. Our youngest clients here are in utero, and our oldest is 95, and whether you're pregnant or you're breastfeeding or, just different stages of life need different nutrition. So it's called nutrition response testing, I was saying, and what I was just describing to you is design clinical nutrition. And, it's not a quick fix. It's all about overall health. You have to be willing to try something new that looks a little different. You have to be willing to read labels and really have a nutrition re-education because of all the misinformation that's out there. But it's totally safe and natural, no interaction with medications. As I was saying, you can work with the really young, and it's truly getting to the root cause of health concerns. And so I'd love to share with the folks who are new to us tonight. I'd be happy to do what we call as a health check, introduce you to the nutrition response testing, see whether you would benefit. And so that's where in the form there's a health screening form in the back of the packet that will allow you, give us permission, basically, to test you. And does anyone have any questions for me about how it all works, or any of the recipes, or any of the concepts that I was talking about? I'm happy to open it up, or if anyone wants to share their experience. I wanted to just open the last little bit up to everybody. I think we are, oh gosh, yeah, we've got about, have 10 extra minutes. Can open forum, ask me anything you want. Or just, I feel like a lot of times too, folks want to know what we eat, so I'm happy to talk about that too, if you're like, well, what the heck does Sophie eat? Or Cindy.
I forgot to ask you this earlier, but
Yeah.
you know the apple cider vinegar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now I saw it on online where they make it in like a tablet form as well.
Oh, interesting.
I know. I don't know.
I haven't seen that. So
if you want to see
yeah, I do want to see it. Carol's asking me about raw apple cider vinegar, right? Raw apple cider vinegar it's such an amazing product because it is a source of these live cultures I was talking about, probiotics. It helps boost acid production in the stomach, and I feel like if we're talking about ways that people are enzyme deficient, or struggling with digestive health, the raw apple cider vinegar can really help that. I have people take it when they're sick. I have people take it when they're burping too much, when they have stomach aches, constipated. So many ways that we use raw apple cider vinegar. And gosh, I don't know, they dehydrate it and put it into a pill. Everyone just wants it to be convenient. You don't want to have to taste that vinegar. Really, it's a wonderful digestive aid. putting a teaspoon into a bit of water and having that like with your meals or before your meals can do a lot to boost stomach acid production. It's a whole nother class, but most people are not making enough stomach acid, really, and it's why they get indigestion in the first place. So I don't know anything about it being a tablet. I would be a little questioning of it, but I definitely recommend that you use it.
As long as you're not allergic to apples.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you talk about the benefits of the unrefined salt?
Mm-hmm.
And can you get too much salt in your diet? Unrefined salt.
Unrefined salt. I find that the body can self-regulate that. So that's kind of answering your last question first. But I'll back up first. So there's a lot of fear about salt, right? Because there's fear about sodium and high blood pressure. And so your conventional table salt that's, in restaurants and sold in stores, it's been bleached and it's been refined to make it white. And thus it's pulling out the trace minerals that we, in the past or traditionally, you're saying it's on that list, right? Using unrefined salt. In the past, we would never get just that sodium in isolation, right? Not to mention the bleaching and the processing that it's gone through. So getting salt that has color to it, that has those trace minerals, then gets you getting all these, in unrefined salts, it's like over 80 essential trace minerals that the body needs to run different functions and that work in conjunction with sodium. And that's why in the past, salt was this precious commodity, right? Because of it being such a life force. So you want to buy salt that's has color to it. We carry the Real Salt brand that comes from the Salt Lake. It's in Utah, but you can get pink Himalayan, you can get dirty Celtic sea salt. Really just needs to have color. And then it's totally a rebuilding tool. I'm actually encouraging people to get more salt in to help restore their mineral balance, improve their energy, improve cognitive function, improve how well their bodies are hydrated. And where was I going with that? I find that it regulates blood pressure, doesn't make it too high, but if it's too high, it can bring it down, or if it's too low, it can bring it up, but it's just because it's regulating those systems. And I find that people will get a sense if they're having too much. You know what I mean? I often have clients do what I call salt shots. So you're pouring a little bit of salt into your hand, you can put it into water, or you can just throw it into your mouth and chase it with water. And it's a great pick-me-up, like that 3 o'clock slump. And it's just another way to get more salt in. If you're struggling, you're not used to putting it all over your food or things like that. And when I was pregnant, I did a salt shot and I got nauseous. And I've had occasionally some clients tell me that they felt nauseous. You're having too much. But it's so rare. It's really rare. And most people are not getting enough. When I was doing my master's degree in human nutrition, they made us analyze our diets and analyze literally all the micro and macro ingredients in it. So I had to analyze how much sodium I was getting. And I was as a client of Tara's at the time, and not eating any processed food, and I was not even meeting the FDA minimum requirements for sodium, unless I was adding in at least a half a teaspoon of salt a day. So I think most people really underutilize it, because it's really hard. If you ever tried to take a half teaspoon of salt and put it in a salt shaker and use it all day long, you're not going to use it all up. That's way more salt than you're just going to sprinkle on your food. So you'd be cooking with it or doing salt shots or
So what about the iodine?
Mm-hmm.
The iodine portion of the salt.
Right. So they bleach the salt, right, and they strip it of everything, and then they add back the iodine for the idea that it was thought to be preventing goiters, right? there is very small amount of iodine in like an unrefined salt, but my experience is that it's not always just about iodine, and it's about all those trace minerals, and it's about also getting the trace amounts of iodine from food, and particularly if you eat some sea products and seafood and seaweed and things like that. And so I don't find that people who switch from white refined salt with iodine to unrefined salt, start developing goiters or iodine deficiencies. But yeah, because it's very much, it's about that whole balance, not just needing one of them. But yeah, thank you.
I have a question about the deli meat.
Yeah.
What kind of meat is deli meat that's just, okay to have? Because I mean, deli meat when I was growing up as a kid was like Oscar Mayer bologna, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So in that we're referring, referring to anything that is like, it can be smoked or it could be a roast, but like it's not treated with the nitrates, basically. Yeah, nitrate free. And so, I mean, I feel like Wegmans has a fantastic selection, that you can buy pre-sliced, or they'll slice right there. And the piggery the same if you're interested in it being more local or pasture raised. But it's really the issue with Oscar Mayer bologna is the processing. But it's a great question because you don't want to be doing a lot of those types of meats that would again be contributing to a lot of the issues that I was talking about.
Sodium.
But
They have a lot of sodium.
incredible amount of sodium. Yeah. Yes, Beth.
The raw cheese.
Yes.
That you talk about. You mentioned one, the feta cheddar.
Yeah, the goat cheddar that Gemma loves. Yeah.
So is that something like what else would be like a raw cheese that would be good to pack for lunch or a roll up?
Yeah. So it's going to be any of your hard cheeses, because that's the thing with cheese making, is that any cheese that has to be aged 60 days is going to be a hard cheese. So like your softer cheeses like feta or mozzarella or things like that, they don't go through an aging process. So then it's not legal in New York State for them to be raw, because they won't have been sitting on a shelf aging for 60 days for them to make sure there's no bacteria growth. Does that make sense? But you can get, there's several kinds of cheddars, not just goat cheddars, at Green Star and at Wegmans. At Wegmans, they've done us a bit of a favor where they put a red dot on the label of anything that's raw, just because we send enough people there hunting for raw cheese, basically. And the ones at Green Star are usually saying pretty big letters, like on the label, raw milk. But you can get a Monterey Jack, you could get a cheddar, you could get Swiss, you could get a Parmesan. I think most Parmesans traditionally are raw anyway, because they're just been aged so long. Yeah, look at you. You're doing it. So there are some yummy options. You're not even get to taste the difference. It's just the label. But it is frustrating if you are like a feta fan or But if it really is the pasteurization process versus, I find that like if someone shows up that they're struggling with pasteurized dairy and they avoid it for a period of time and do more of the raw dairy and where they work on repairing digestion, then it's those local grass-fed cheeses that can come back in, then the quality of the dairy, even if it's been pasteurized, if it's a higher quality, can get it back. Yeah.
I'll just say one of my favorites is Lori's bread with grilled cheese with a high quality cheddar.
Yeah, so the Lori's bread is a navy bean flour bread. Like she's a local woman in Lansing who's really worked to make a totally allergy-free bread. And so it's sold in the freezer section of the bread section in Green Star. And it's a big thing in my household. We run out of it and my girls get very upset. But I find you need to toast it. It kind of falls, it's not great. Just, you need to toast it, put lots of butter or lots of coconut oil or things on it to give it, and then, that'll make a good grilled cheese.
But it's not paleo.
It technically, I guess, isn't, because it's a legume. Yeah. But I do find it's quite high carbohydrates, so I very much encourage people to put all the fat with it to kind of slow down the digestion of it. Otherwise, it's I don't want to call it like white bread, but it's so starchy that, like, you know, it's going to digest and turn into those quick glucose just right in your mouth, like with your digestive enzymes in your mouth, just because it doesn't have a lot of fiber. It's just the bean starch that's in it. But
So you can put that on it?
helps slow down the digestion of it, for sure. Yeah, but again, it's this piece of, like, there's just more and more of these products out there, you know. So they are, I mean, they're still more specialty items, but it's fun to see. There's a bread called Barely Bread also now being carried at Green Star, which is the local co-op that I like more because it's more complex in its ingredients list. So it contains psyllium, so it's just higher fiber. It's got like sweet potato flour and coconut flour and almond flour and psyllium, and so thus it's lower carbohydrate, because I just work with so many folks who are pre-diabetic or diabetic, or, you know, working to lose weight, and we're just trying to make sure they're not getting hidden carbohydrate sources, and so that's another.
a wheat product, right?
No, psyllium's a fiber. Yeah, it's just a pure fiber. It's a it's not a wheat product. Yeah.
Is that a freezer thing too, or is that?
It is in the freezer section of the bread section in Green Star. Yeah.
I get lost in there. Well, not
I
lost,
know.
but you're like looking and it's like, where is it? And it's
I
like,
know.
oh, it's in the freezer. Oh.
Yeah. And again, like, I get better feedback about the rolls than I do, like, I don't know, everyone has their own preference, but again, toasted stuff on it.
How about the sprouted grain?
Yeah,
bread?
absolutely better options. They're totally a better option. Yeah, like, you know, yeah, if someone's transitioning from, we're talking a lot about bread. We all love bread. But if someone's transitioning from a bread and needs to have a better option, like Ezekiel bread, which is a sprouted grain bread, can be a better option. You know, a lot of traditional diets, and the Weston A Price Foundation is really big into sourdoughs. So again, it's that fermentation, it's the culturing, it's the breaking down of the rye traditionally, or of the wheat traditionally. But again, a better option. I just work with so many folks who either need to avoid wheat completely for a period of time, or again are just overall reducing these carbohydrate foods, needing to reduce the carbohydrate foods, and so then that would be one of them. But I would so prefer people eat, you know, someone eats that versus eats a sub, right? Yeah, and sometimes it's, you know, it's working towards that. So yeah, what we pulled out a couple of our boxes too of stuff that's available locally, that or online. So I'll put these out here so you can look at them, see if you've just come across any of them and you're interested in it. There's you know, some grain-free crackers. There's this is an almond flour pasta. It's really delicious. This is a chickpea-based pasta. Just if we're talking about sandwich breads. Yeah, what's the brand name of this bread though? Here's a bread. It was supposedly good. Says fast. What?
It's online.
Oh, it's online. Okay, yeah. These are really great for picnics, and grain-free chip. So, yeah, I'll leave these out so you can look at them and getting more options if you're trying to. But these, these are all like kind of grain substitute ideas. But really, I love to just encourage people. It's just about switching up how you think about what's on your plate, right? And you know, you've got your spot where your grains used to be. Well, now put more veggies there. You don't necessarily need to, but it's all about these transitions. Gosh, when I first started changing how I ate, I had a bread machine, and instead of making regular bread, I was just all about gluten-free bread, and I was like cooking with tapioca flour and sorghum and rice, and I was just doing all these blends, but still just having lots and lots of bread. And then I just slowly started having less bread, and then I moved into grain-free baking, and Now I just don't really eat bread. You know what I mean? But like that's a transition of 8 years, you know, and I'm not expecting anyone or asking anyone to do that overnight. But I could keep talking about this forever. It is 7:30. Thanks so much for your questions and your interaction. Thank you for coming.